debauchery, curses, and revenge. But enough about modern politics. Let's talk Verdi. Rigoletto is based on the Victor Hugo play Le Roi et Muse and is the first of what is considered Giuseppe Verdi's best three operas. Created successively, these were Rigoletto, the incredible Il Trovatore, and my personal favorite, La Traviata. And just this past weekend, the Metropolitan Opera put on a spectacular performance of Rigoletto, in spite of some snow that seemed to dump on the city. We're kind of actually going through a bit of a death storm here. Death storm. We're supposed to get like 12 to 16 inches. I think we're only getting about 6 in this area. I hope that if you were in the area of the storm, you didn't necessarily go out and see the encore tonight. And hopefully you're waiting for it to come to PBS for free for their Great Performances series or to the Metropolitan Opera website. I'm not going to do a big breakdown of the story here. This is more of a review of the performance rather than the actual opera itself. But I'll do a quick rundown of what the story of Rigoletto is. Rigoletto stars the titular character, a court jester for the Duke of Mantua, a philandering noble always looking for his next affair. The two, however, are cursed by Count Monterone, an elderly gentleman whose daughter was seduced by the Duke. Meanwhile, the rest of the court is angry with Rigoletto for his mocking and decide to kidnap his presumed mistress, a girl named Gilda. Upon successful kidnapping, they present her to the Duke, who had been making his own liaisons to her previously. As the Duke begins forcing himself on her, Rigoletto meets the court and demands his daughter back. Oops. Well, she's released, but is scarred by the experience. Rigoletto then plots to kill the Duke with the assassin, Sparafusile, who works with his sister Maddalena to trap the noble. But Maddalena gets cold feet and prefers to spare the Duke in order to kill Rigoletto. Sparafusile refuses, but says that he'll kill anyone entering the bar that night instead. Gilda, after overhearing the plan, decides to sacrifice herself for both her father and the Duke. Upon revelation, Rigoletto cries out in pain over the loss of his daughter and the curse Monterone placed on him. Bartlett Sher and his team did a great job with the setting. Choosing Weimar Germany was a great choice, and it felt like that it was all fully realized, especially compared to the previous Vegas setting that they had at the Met, which wasn't a bad choice, but felt like it wasn't fully thought out. The set primarily consists of this giant structure that's on a moving floor that just sort of turns around whenever they need a different part of the set. On one side, it has a big open area that serves as the ballroom as well as the Duke's office. And on the other side of that, they have an area that kind of works as Rigoletto's home as well as the bar that's run by Sparafusile and his sister. My favorite use of the set was actually when they had Gilda at the beginning of Act 2 be prepared for the Duke. I know it's a horrifying thing for her to go through, but it was actually an interesting visual because they started out in the office and then Piotr Beczala, who played the Duke, came forward away from the moving floor, and as the stage started turning, you could see Rosa Feola, who played Gilda, running from open area to open area as she's essentially getting undressed and put in what is perceived as a more appropriate outfit for the Duke. It's a interesting visual, and a full credit to all those who were in that scene for just moving from spot to spot in time to get the proper visual for the camera and for the audience, as well as the designers for the visual aspect of the scene. I do remember hearing that similar sets can actually look kind of small on the Met stage. Particularly, I heard that with Carmen, the production they've had since 2010. It looks great on film, but maybe looks a little small in person. So it's probably something where it's supposed to look good for the cameras and maybe just passable in person. I should mention I have a bit of an issue with the opera itself, not the production. The production itself was fine. My issue is more with Verdi than anyone else connected with this particular production. There seems to be some bloat, in my opinion, particularly in the first 2 acts. I remember in previous productions that I watched that the second act seemed to just be bogged down. When I was watching this one, it seemed like the first act just had these moments where, well, in particular, When Rigoletto went to go see Gilda for the first time in the opera, they had this great duet that feels like it goes on a couple minutes too long. And then Gilda has a duet with the Duke that goes on for what feels like a couple minutes too long. And then Gilda has her own aria that goes on for what feels like a couple minutes too long. And it all sounds beautiful, but it just feels like, can we just move on, please? Again, not an issue with the production. Everyone in this scene was wonderful, especially Rosa Feola. She was incredible to watch, and this was her first live in HD broadcast. Hopefully we get to see more of her in the future. I think she'd make a great Violetta in La Traviata. Oh, she's actually performed as Violetta before. Cool! Actually, what I would like to see her try is to take a turn as Bellini's Norma. It might be asking a little too much, but I'd certainly watch it. Piotr Beczala returns to a signature role of his as the Duke of Mantua, a role he has played for over a decade and a half. And I have never seen anyone be so happy in playing a part. I mean, this guy already has a huge smile to begin with, but it feels like it gets 10 times bigger when he's playing the Duke. This guy looks like he's just having the time of his life, whether he's playing it in Weimar Germany, Vegas, or a corrupt space colony somewhere on Mars. It's also been amazing to see him go from a lucky break performing for his live in HD debut in Lucia de Lammermoor after the regular Edgardo had to bow out with illness. He's appeared in 9 broadcasts now, stretching over 13 years, performing in Manon, Eugenie Onegin, Rosalka, Yolanta, Louisa Miller, Adriana Lecouvier, and twice as the Duke in Rigoletto. Which is to say, I think it's time for him to start thinking about retiring the role. Don't get me wrong, he was good. But there's some parts where it feels like his age is starting to get to him. If there's one thing about Rigoletto you know, it's probably the Duke's Act 3 aria, La Donna Immobile. As the aria reaches its end, the Duke hits the big flourish. I remember him hitting it cleanly on Saturday, but the fact that he's having trouble hitting it shows that his age is kind of starting to catch up to him. I mean, just hear him from 9 years ago at the same part. It's not just here. When the Duke talks with Gilda in Act 1, he says that he's a student, which he could kind of work 9 years ago, but now he looks like an old man using Botox. Although that's less important in opera. You usually want the one who's the most skilled available rather than the one who looks the best for the part. And then there's Quinn Kelsey as Rigoletto. He was spectacular and performed this like he could own the role for the next decade if he wanted. This is the 3rd time I've seen Quinn Kelsey in a live in HD performance. The first time, I believe, was as Schaunard in La Bohème, which would be a bit hard to analyze him on because it's a bit of a smaller role. It'd be like analyzing someone's individual performance in a trio. The other role was Giorgio Germant in La Traviata, another in which he excelled. And by watching the 2 roles, you can tell that he understands the gravity of each situation, whether as a dignified father or a vengeful jester. Rigoletto requires the singer to go through a gamut of emotions, going from jovial clown in the beginning to protective, loving father to angry and vengeful by opera's end, and you could feel it coming from Quinn throughout the performance. By the way, if it seems like I'm talking a lot more about the male performers than I am about Rosa, it's that I've seen these guys more than I have her, although I have seen her in a few recital-type situations on YouTube. Again, I enjoyed her turn as Gilda. I hope she does more at the Met in the future, which she should have the chance since she is in her mid-30s. Getting back to Quinn, this performance should be the start of a great run for him. He's only 44 and should have at least a good decade of starring roles in him before it's all said and done. I know he's got experience in other roles like Count de Luna in Il Trovatore and Enrico in Lucia de Lammermoor, But what I would like to see him in is Simone Boccanegra, another Verdi opera. I mean, he has shown he could pull off the dignified emotion for that role. Ooh, or maybe a turn as Macbeth. You know, like in the Scottish play opera? Just a good baritone role where he can become more and more paranoid as the opera goes on. Wait. I got it. Peter Gelb, if you're listening, try to set this up for a year or two from now. Tosca. Sandra Radvanovsky as Tosca, Jonas Kaufman as Mario, and Quinn Kelsey as Scarpia. It would be amazing. I can already hear it in my head. It's awesome. Anyways, the performance was great, the production was awesome, and I enjoyed every minute save for those bloated parts in Acts 1 and 2. Did you happen to see it this past Saturday, or the encore on Wednesday? Let me know down below what you thought about the performance. If you want to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified when more content like this comes out. Next Saturday is an encore performance of Fire Shut Up in My Bones. And this week, I believe they have a free performance of Porgy and Bess from 2 years ago. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.